In the early 20th century, women were struggling for their rights all over the world, especially in the European countries and the US. We see that the women were demanding for their right to vote, the suffrage movement. And we see at the back of these movements, we had the feminist movement, the foundation. Feminist movement is a movement which is and which has been for the rights of women and for the equal status of women in the society. When women were struggling for their right to franchise or the right to vote, they were also supported by men. We will talk about these historical perspectives later on, but here we see that while women were struggling for this right, and ultimately they were successful in attaining this right, there was a realization that women needed something more than that. There had been a growing consciousness that women could be very good contributors to the society. They could serve the society and they could contribute to the society just like men could too. They felt that they could also excel and they could be equal to men in all spheres of life, whether it was education, it was medicine, it was industry. Now, women had started taking part in all these fields. Therefore, they wanted that they should be given an opportunity to be equal to men. There was a realization that the existing curriculum that was taught at school or college, at university, that needed to be revisited, that needed to be changed, and that needed to be improved. The feminist movement saw many phases and many stages, which we call and which we know as the waves of feminism. In the 1960s, we saw that when the second wave of feminist movement was very intense, there was a growing realization to change, modify, and improve the existing curriculum as well. It was felt that women's perspective needed to be added to what we were teaching at our educational institutions. Therefore, there was a need to look into the curriculum that was being taught. There was a need to add to the women perspective, and there was a need to touch women-related issues in our curriculum and the text that was being used. So as a result, people tried to work on that, and they tried to add the women's perspective to the existing situation. But here we see that at that time, people were not talking about gender issues or the gender perspective. At the initial stages, we were talking about women's perspective, women's issues, and women's studies. Mary Ritter Beard is said to have developed perhaps the first such course in 1934. She worked on these lines and she developed a curriculum which was quite lengthy, which was known as A Changing Political Economy as It Affects Women. She designed that. It was a 54-page syllabus. It was a comprehensive syllabus, but it was not implemented and it was not used. The actual developments took place after some time. The first formal program in women's studies was introduced in 1970 by San Diego State University. That was actually the first program when some formal degree was to be awarded in this course. The first milestone like this and the earlier curriculum developed, they were followed by many developments in different countries. And different institutions, universities, they started their programs, at times full-fledged programs and at times courses in women's studies. In Pakistan, the first Department of Women's Studies was established in 1989 at University of Karachi by the Ministry of Women Development at that time. Gender studies has a very wide scope, and with the passage of time we see that its scope has widened and its horizon has been broadened. It is linked with many other disciplines also, and we can look at social issues from a gender perspective using our knowledge of psychology, knowledge of sociology, knowledge of history, political science, and many other disciplines. It discusses issues from a gender perspective involving psychology, sociology, health, religion, politics, art and literature, environment, law, economic development, leadership, and so on. There is a long list because we see that no matter which sphere of life we are talking about, the gender element is always there. For a student having studied gender studies, there are quite a few job openings and professional positions available. You can always go and work in government organizations. You can work in NGOs. You can work in research and development agencies. You can go for research organizations. You can become a researcher yourself. And you can be a university or college teacher. At the same time, we see that there are many jobs, although they are not pertaining to gender studies as such, but for those jobs, gender specialists are required. So we see that the job openings are quite a lot for the students of gender studies. And if a student of sociology is doing gender studies, the chances of doing research in gender phenomenon are very promising.